In the early 1980s, as Gary said, I do tax litigation work. I've been doing tax litigation work for over 40 years. And I started in the late 1970s. In the early 1980s, I ran into a client. I got a client that actually had a unique problem for me. And the problem was he was charged with a crime. You see, a tax crime. You see, up to that point in my career, I'd been dealing with the IRS at an administrative and a civil level, and certainly with tax court issues, but they were all civil issues. It was all a debate about dollars and cents. You owe this. No, I don't. Yes, you do. That kind of a fight over dollars and cents. And the worst case scenario is a client would have to write a check. But in this particular case, my client Bob was charged with a crime. And that was a very serious matter. And it was serious for him, and it was serious for me, because up to that point in my career, I had no experience with criminal tax cases. So I was in over my head, and Bob was in the deep end, and we needed a trial lawyer that would help us with this case. And so I set out to find Bob a trial lawyer. Through a series of referrals, I found a man named Tom, who was an attorney in Minneapolis, a few years older than me, and he had a great deal of experience in criminal law. That's what he focused on, was criminal law. But he had no experience in tax law. So we sat down and we talked about the case, and we got to know each other a little bit, and we talked about some just very general strategy. And we agreed to work together. I was going to handle the tax aspects of the case and put the tax part of it together, and he was going to present the case to a jury. And that's how we were going to do this. And over many months, that's exactly what we did. We worked together day and night on this case, right up through and including the time of trial, and we became fast friends in the course of this process. We started out with not just the law in common. It's not just that we had the law in common. We shared a great number of things in common. Our views on limited government and oppressive government agencies, out-of-control government agencies, bureaucracies. We talked about ignorant politicians and politicians who didn't know what the Constitution meant or said. We talked about economics. Tom's undergraduate degree was in economics. Law is my avocation, but history and economics law is my vocation, I should say, but history and economics is my avocation, so we got along well in those areas as well. We talked about free market economics, politics, law, the Constitution. He had an abiding love for the Constitution, as do I, in American history. And so we had all these things in common, and it went even farther than that. Tom loved baseball. That was probably the best part. And he was a scientist. He understood the game of baseball better than anybody I ever met who didn't play the game at a high level. And we spent many, many hours at Minnesota Twins baseball games, sitting there talking about all the things they were doing wrong, which was a great number of them. And talking about law and politics and economics all during that process. In fact, Tom and I coached youth baseball together for a number of years, and eventually we built an office building together, and we worked side by side for a number of years. Then in November of 2000, I'll never forget this, it was the Monday before the presidential election when George W. Bush was running against that other guy, the guy who invented the internet. What was his name? That one. Al Gore. He was running against Al Gore, and we were sitting in my office that Monday afternoon, and we were chatting and laughing and carrying on about the election, and he was getting ready to leave the office to head to Phoenix. He was going to meet his father in Phoenix for a couple of days. I was going to head to Las Vegas. We were going to meet in Vegas that Thursday night for the start of a seminar that I produced every year, a continuing legal education seminar that we presented to law and accountants around the country to teach them how to deal with the IRS, and Tom helped me with this seminar for years. So he leaves the office, I head for Vegas, we're going to meet Thursday night. Wednesday evening, I get a call from home. Tom was dead. He was rollerblading in Phoenix. Guy came home, sat in his chair, closed his eyes, and never woke up. I never saw him again. To this day, I miss Tom every day. I miss his wit, his love of the Constitution, his knowledge of law, his wise counsel. I miss all these things. I miss it. I can't watch a Twins game. To this day, I can't watch a Twins game without thinking of Tom. And I spent a lot of time listening to the Twins, watching the Twins. But the thing that haunts me, friends, the things that I'll take to my grave, is during all this interaction with Tom over all these years, I never once told him about my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Why not? Why didn't I do that? Why don't we do that? It's not like Tom had cancer and I had to tell him, Tom, you're going to die. It's not like I had to tell him his wife was dead. Isn't the gospel good news? Yes, say yes. Yes, of course it is. Why didn't I tell them about the good news? You know, we're told, and we hear this all the time, we're told, well, you're not supposed to talk about religion and politics with friends. Well, the politics thing that ship sailed, right? So why not religion? Why not about the Lord? Why not about our Savior? Why didn't I talk to him about that? You know, and this is getting worse today than it was then because Christians are marginalized today. You know, we are told that our faith doesn't mean anything, that we're irrelevant, that we should keep our mouths shut, that we're bigoted and we're homophobic and xenophobic and claustrophobic and all the rest of these things they accuse us of being. And we're told, okay, you want to go to your church and sing your little songs and play your cute guitar, that's all well and good. Come Monday morning, keep your mouth shut. And they've driven God out of schools, and they've driven God off our playgrounds, and they've driven God out of courtrooms, and they've driven God out of our councils and out of our boardrooms. And what we end up with is godless schools and godless playgrounds and godless courtrooms and godless councils and godless boardrooms, and people can't figure out why our culture is declining. I've got a chapter in the book, Salt and Light, on the decline of America, the idea that we're losing the culture war. When they're losing the culture war because Christians have pounded into this, they've had this idea pounded into their head that we're supposed to keep our mouths shut. So we don't talk about religion and politics with our friends and our family. We don't want to ruffle feathers. We don't want to get anybody angry. We don't want to start fights or cause friction, right? They're going to have to hear it from somebody else. They can't hear it from me. Friends, that's not the scriptural model. That is not the scriptural model.